Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to the continuation of this video tutorial where we are going to be texturing the scene. In the last video tutorial, we textured these grapes. Today we are going to be covering how to create glass and how to create wine. So if you're interested in creating wine or any type of fluid, you have to make sure that you have a physical object that is going to represent wine. So usually to create this, the only thing you have to do is duplicate this cup, and then you would just, delete the faces that you don't need, fill in the hole, and you will get the shape of the glass. Furthermore, just make sure you scale it down just a tiny bit so that it fits into your cup perfectly. All right. So now that we can understand the basic model of how to create a fluid, let's start off with how to create glass. So right now, if I try to render, this is what we get. If you want to render this and you want it to stop, just press escape and that will stop the render. I'm going to go ahead and scale this down a little bit. Actually, up here at the top, I have something called texturing 2. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. And I'm going to go ahead and close some windows because I really just need a couple of things, including my render window. So I'm going to close these because I already have the properties, and then I'm going to drag this up here. I do have a workspace, so if you guys are interested in closing this as well, I do have a video tutorial that goes over how to create your own workspace. So this will help me not only look at my shaders, I can also quickly look at renders and so on and so forth. And of course, I also have my attributes here. Let me zoom in. Can also make this a little smaller. All right. So glass. The first thing we're going to do is right-click, assign a new material. I'm going to use an AI standard surface. So select Arnold, select AI standard surface. And this is going to be my glass shader. We do have some presets, so right click on presets, and then we can choose something as simple as glass, and then click on replace. I'm going to make a selection so that it only renders the glass, and then press play. I'm going to head press stop. Let's just actually render the whole thing because I did move it. One of the things you'll notice is that it is refracting, so I'm going to press stop, and the light goes through and refracts. So if I move this a little bit to the side and I press play, you'll see that the light is actually bending. And so that's kind of like a nice thing about glass, is that this is already fairly accurate to glass. So I'm going to undo and put that back. Now, if you guys are interested in knowing more about glass, I do have a video tutorial on glass. So if you want to see that, feel free to, the link will be below. So all the links that I'm mentioning, such as how to texture grapes, how to learn more about glass, and also the workspace, you will be able to find below in the description. So glass, just to kind of go over the basics, it's all based on transmission. Transmission is glass, and I can change the color of glass by changing the transmission color. So if I press play, you'll notice that now I have a blue glass. We do also have a couple of other things such as depth, scatter, and a couple of other things, but in general, you just kind of look at transmission. So transmission at 1 is 100%. If you want to make it somewhat less transparent and more solid, you can decrease the width. All right, again, I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit and just make a selection here. All right, so I'm going to crank this back to 1. I'm also going to crank this back up to white, which is what makes it transparent. And then we're going to move on to the wine. Select the wine. I'm going to right-click, assign a new material. I'm going to use the same thing, an AI standard surface. This is going to be my wine shader. And this time I'm going to do the transmission myself and also choose kind of like a deep red color. So it depends what type of wine you're going for. I'm trying to go for a little bit more of a cab than I am for a like a Merlot or anything like that. So right, you can see that I kind of nailed it. It's a little dark, so I'm going to go ahead and just lighten the color to kind of add a little bit more of that red. So the lighter the color, the more light will go through it. So that looks a little bit like cheaper wine. So I'm going to make it a little darker just so I can get a nice red color. All right, so now we're going to go and bring this back. So since my things were frozen, my transformations were frozen, I can get this type of glass and wine. It's looking nice. All right, let's take a look at the wine shader. We also have something called depth. And if I start increasing the depth, right now it's a black, you're not going to see much of a difference, but it will pick up some color. So what I can do with this is actually use this to kind of guide the scatter a little bit. And I'm going to choose a little bit more of an orangey color and a little bit less depth. And again, this is just to give the glass or the wine a little bit more look, a little bit more color. So let me get a little color here, a little bit more on the orangey side. So what's it doing is just that it's adding a little bit of that orange into the scatter, into the wine, which if you look at wine, it's actually pretty neat. It's got a lot of layers. So by adding a little bit of color into scatter, you can get a little bit of that color to come through, which is what I'm trying to achieve. So there's a lot of fun things you can use with this, but in general, I think that's looking pretty decent. So let's go ahead and render the whole thing. Now you'll notice that one of the issues is that glass, especially transparent glass, doesn't really emit shadows. And unfortunately, that's one of the problems with Arnold is that it doesn't emit photons. So the reason why Arnold is fast is because it's not emitting like millions of photons, to get accurate caustics. It is, though, emitting a lot of rays. But if you did want some shadows, you might want to consider just reducing the transmission. So if you reduce the transmission, you will start getting some shadows back. So if you're thinking of maybe creating glass or something like that in that nature, you might be able to get something like that. Place my scene like this and then render away. All right. The next thing is the background. Right now we are just using a very simple physical sky. Let's go to HDRI Haven. So HDRIHaven.com has a lot of HDRIs, so it's up to you which one you want. Since mine seems to be taking place outdoors, I'm going to go to outdoors, and then you can see how the lighting and reflections work on this object. So for example, if you're interested in something like in a park, which is kind of like what I'm interested in, I might actually choose something like perhaps this one. It's a little soft in the shadows, but that might be nice. Let's go ahead and it's not too bad. Let's see. I'll download a 2K. Save and make sure you place it in your source images. All right, back in Maya, let's go ahead and take a look at our... Well, actually, I'm going to bring back my lights. I'm going to select this light, delete it, and I'm going to go to Arnold Lights, Sky Dome. Let's open up the attributes. Let's go to color, click on this little checker, go to file, go to this little folder, and there it is in my source images. Click on that. We can see right away what that looks like. A lot of the times it's going to look a little crazy because we actually have to make this into raw. So I'm going to press stop. Over here to the right in my file, let's change this to raw, and then we can press play. So now what we're going to get is a different type of lighting, and you'll notice how much the reflection changes. The refraction is working. You're getting different types of light. I'm going to press stop. I'm going to grab this and just kind of rotate it a little bit so the lighting can be a little bit more coming from the right. And I'm going to go ahead and let it render, but you can see that by changing the lighting and the background, this starts to look very realistic. Let's pull this out so we can get a better view. Click on 1:1 so we can see it in the correct size. I'm going to go back and make this a little deeper just because I'm going to press stop. I feel like my red is looking very, rosé maybe? I don't know if you guys know this. I love wine. I drink, my favorite right now is Cabs. Francs are really good as well. So anyway, I have a range. But Merlots are okay. I'm a bigger fan of like deeper, bolder colors and flavors. All right, let's see what this is looking better. So you can see that the quality of my render is pretty high because I'm going to make a selection here. And let's move this over so I can make this a little darker. So feel free to let me know what type of wine you guys like to drink. Some people like rosés. There's nothing wrong with rosés. Some people like to drink, white wine, red wine. Just let me know at the comments. What wine do you like? Which one do you prefer? All right, so this is looking a little deeper. Maybe I'll just go ahead and bring it in. And so the reflection is pretty strong here. And I may want to play around with my IOR. So my IOR is the index of refraction. And I'm going to go over here to my test resolution at 50%. So it's a little smaller. So now it looks like this. So it'll render faster. And now I'm going to make a selection. And then I'm going to zoom in because I just need to see some of it. So my IOR just means like how much do you want this to reflect or refract? The light goes in, it bends, and that's why we can see this type of reflection. If I decrease it to a little bit less, we can get the different types of refractions. I accidentally selected the wine shader. Let me go ahead and change this back to 1.4 or 1.5, which is basically liquid or water. So let's grab the glass shader and I'm going to change the IOR to, let's say, 1.1. If I change my IOR to 1.1, you're going to see that the reflection changes. So the more it looks like glass. So depending on what type of glass you're trying to go for. So I actually like 1.1. I think that works. If you want to try to get rid of this reflection here, you might want to do is increase the roughness a little bit. So specular roughness. Now, the question that you have to ask ourselves is this the reflection from the glass or is this a reflection from the fluid, right? Because we have two objects that are causing reflections. So let's take a look by rendering it out. So you can see that. If you don't want that, you can either change the IOR, which, I can change it to like a 1.4, but you can also increase the roughness, which will blur the shadows a little. Just a little bit. Let's try 0.3. So you can see now that the reflections aren't as strong. And if you really want to enjoy this, we might as well change the color to a little bit more red. I think now I'm just kind of having fun with it. But we can change this to look a little bit more pink. So I can change the reflection. So instead of being white, I can change it to something a little bit more red. Let me change this back to 0. And let's see what this whole thing looks like. So we got my grapes. I've got my glass. I'm happy with the look. I like the wine. Still got to update some other things, but in general, I'm kind of happy with what it looks. And let's press play. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop this because I like the way it looks. And now I want to have a higher quality render. So I'm going to go back to test resolution at 100%. And so if I press play, it's going to be a lot. It's going to look like nothing's changed. But if I hit 1.1, it's now larger. Just to let you know, under my comments tab, I have changed it to HD 720. The default is 540, but I changed it to 720. And I also increased my Arnold settings. So right now my Arnold settings is at 4, 3, 3, diffuses 3, specular transmissions. I don't have subsurface. Oh, I do have subsurface in the grape, so that's why that's 3. I don't have any volumetric indirects, so don't worry about that. My adaptive is on. I'm going to increase this to maybe 9. And also in your ray depth, go ahead and take a look at that. We do have transmission. I brought that up. If you guys are interested, you may want to increase these values as well because it helps with the ray depth and of course our transmission. And I think that's going to be good for now. So be careful when you do render settings because you don't want to just start increasing value. The higher the numbers, the longer the render. But if you put in a ton of high numbers and they don't do anything for you, is only increasing the render time but not the quality. So with that, I am going to go ahead and let this render. I'm going to go to, instead of to Arnold, I'm just going to click on this one. And all right, there we go. Nice quality glass. Look at the beautiful, delicious red wine. And you get the grapes as well. So the next part's going to be how to texture the rest of it. So, and maybe add a piece of cheese. So I hope you found this video tutorial helpful. Let me know by leaving a comment below what you think or if you have any suggestions. Also, feel free to take a look at academicphoenixplus.com where you can You can download this 3D model for free. You can also find ebook, free downloads, and so much more. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also click on that little bell so you don't miss any other updates. And again, thank you so much for spending the time with me and watching this video tutorial. Thanks everybody, and I will see you in the next video tutorial. Take care.